In this video, I'll be analysing two legendary figures from the Soul Society facing off against each other. One side, we have Yachiru Unohana, the most notorious criminal in the history of the Soul Society, the first one to ever bear the title of Kenpachi, versus Sosuke Aizen, the transcendent being who fused with the Hokyoku and orchestrated a century-long conspiracy against the Soul King and the Three Realms. In this video, we'll be determining what happens when mastery of 8,000 different sword styles goes up against the most dangerous, cunning mind in the Soul Society. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why Unohana vs Aizen isn't even close. Let's begin by establishing the rules of the fight. So the battle is going to take place on neutral ground, where neither combatant has an environmental advantage. There's no outside interference and no prep time. The version of Unohana that'll be battling will be from the 1000-year Blood War arc, the Yachiru Unohana who fought against Kenpachi Zaraki in Muken with her full Bankai Minazuki and her unrestricted killing intent activated. The version of Aizen that we'll be using will be from the 1000-year Blood War arc, where he faces off against the Soul King empowered Yhwach. So while yes, he is still partially bound by Mayuri seals, this is the version of Aizen whose Reiatsu continued expanding during his 19 months of imprisonment within Muken. And yes, the Hokyoku fusion did grant him immortality that the Central 46 acknowledged, which is why they sentenced him to 20,000 years of imprisonment, sealing him within the lowest level of the Central Underground Prison because they were unable to kill him. The win conditions for the fight are straightforward. It's death or complete incapacitation. Neither combatant is able to retreat and only one will walk away from the fight. Let's now examine each of the characters, beginning with Unohana Yachiru. Before becoming the serene captain of the 4th Division, she was one of the most notorious criminals in the history of the Soul Society. She terrorized the lawless districts of Rukongai, earning an infamous reputation for her brutality that had no equal amongst the hundreds of criminals who roamed those lands. She was a master of over 8,000 different sword styles, earning the title Yachiru. When Yamamoto was forming the original Gotei 13 over 1,000 years ago, he personally sought out Unohana despite her criminal status. Yhwach described the original Gotei 13 as the strongest generation, and Unohana was a central figure within that group, serving as the founder and first captain of the 11th Division, which specializes in combat. Her key feats are demonstrated during her training battle with Kenpachi Zaraki within Muken. Unohana brought Kenpachi to the brink of death multiple times. She killed him repeatedly and then healed him back to full capacity so that she could kill him again. She maintained this brutal cycle for an extended period, demonstrating both her combat superiority and her seemingly limitless stamina reserves. The Kenpachi that she was battling had already grown significantly stronger than his Arrancar arc self. Yet Unohana consistently overpowered him until his subconscious mental limitations finally shattered and he surpassed her. Her signature abilities center around her Zanpakuto Minazuki, which possesses two radically different forms. In its Shikai, it transforms into a massive flying manta ray creature capable of healing multiple wounded individuals through the powerful medicine stored in its stomach. According to Kubo's official fan club Club Outside, Minazuki can alter its size from building size down to as small as a puppy. Her Bankai, also called Minazuki but written with different kanji, which means all things end, reveals her true nature as a killer. When activated, Unohana cuts herself, releasing a massive pool of blood-like liquid that encompasses the surrounding area. This substance possesses extreme corrosive properties, capable of melting away skin, muscle, and tendons, leaving only bones behind. She can launch this blood as slashing attacks from a distance or create defensive spheres to deflect incoming strikes. Most importantly, her Bankai provides continuous passive healing throughout activation, allowing her to sustain fatal injuries and recover moments later without conscious effort. Beyond her Zanpakuto, Unohana possesses master level Kido abilities which she had learned from the 0 Division member Tenjiro Kurinji. Her understanding of healing grants her intimate knowledge of anatomy knowledge, which translates into knowing exactly how to inflict maximum damage in combat. The official Bleach databook Souls gives Unohana impressive statistics. Her attack is 100, her defense is 80, her mobility is 70, her Kido is 100, intellect is 100, and her stamina is 90. So her overall marks are 540 out of 600. Notably, she possesses one of the highest combined attack and spiritual pressure ratings amongst all captains. In the other corner, we have Sosuke Aizen, who operated in the shadows for over a century, manipulating the entire Soul Society while appearing to be a benevolent captain. His betrayal during the Soul Society arc revealed a being whose intellect and power made the combined might of the Gotei 13 captains look like children playing with swords. After fusing with the Hokyoku during the Fake Karakura Town arc, Aizen transcended what it meant to be a Shinigami, as via his multiple evolutionary forms, he had ascended to a totally different level of power. This was before he was attacked by Ichigo's Mugetsu, and he was sealed away by Urahara's Kido. His key feats during the 1000-Year Blood War arc demonstrate that imprisonment only made Aizen more dangerous. When Shunsui released just 3 of his 19 seals, Aizen's spiritual pressure was powerful enough to disintegrate the hands of a jailer simply through proximity. He had also used Hado number 90 Kurohitsugi without incantation while still bound to Chair-sama, and the power release was so immense that Urahara commented that Aizen appeared to have grown stronger than when he had fought Ichigo. When Yubak absorbed the Soul King and began raining down creatures of darkness upon the Serete, Aizen destroyed several of them at the same time, using nothing but his Reiatsu as a weapon. He later claimed that he could use his spiritual pressure to bring down the Soul King's palace itself. This statement went totally unchallenged. During the final confrontation with Soul King absorbed Yubak, Aizen withstood having his arms severed and a hole blown through his chest, and he survived being swallowed by Yubak's chaotic darkness as he emerged intact enough to be re-imprisoned afterwards. His signature abilities begin with his Zanpakuto Kyokasui Getsu. Anyone who's witnessed its Shikai release falls under Aizen's absolute control, as he takes over their 5 senses permanently. The hypnosis is so perfect that even being aware of it doesn't help resist its influence. Aizen can make a fly appear as a dragon or a swamp as a flower garden. He can create entire false battles through illusions and make buildings appear occupied by people who are actually corpses, as well as manipulate his victim's perception of time itself. The 13 Blades databook confirms that he has complete control over the entirety of an opponent's sensory system. After his imprisonment, Aizen evolved this ability further. He can now subtly place people under his illusions just by using his Reiatsu alone without even drawing his Zanpakuto. Most impressively, Kyokasui Getsu's illusions affected even the Almighty, Yubak's power to see and alter all futures. You have to remember, Yubak is a being who had precognitive abilities spanning every possible timeline, but yet he was still deceived by Aizen's hypnosis. The Hokyoku granted Aizen true immortality. He survived being vertically cut in half by Ichigo's Mugetsu, the attack that literally cost Ichigo all of his Shinigami powers. Mayuri considered Aizen amongst the Muken prisoners whose hearts would never stop beating, making it impossible to kill him by execution in the Soul Society. Even Yubak was aware of Aizen's Hokyoku forms, admitting that killing him would be a time-consuming task. The official Bleach databook Souls gives Aizen similarly impressive statistics. His attack was given 100 out of 100, his defense was 90, his mobility was given 90, impressively his Kido is 100, Intellect is 100, and his stamina is at 80. So this totals to 560 out of 600 marks. It is one of the highest totals amongst all of the Gotei 13 captains. Now moving on to their abilities, when analyzing them, the critical factor here is that Unohana has already seen Kyokasui Getsu's release during the Soul Society arc, when Aizen revealed his survival to Unohana and Isane. He activated his Shikai in front of them while explaining its mechanics. Unohana is now permanently susceptible to complete hypnosis. She demonstrated exceptional perception by detecting anomalies in Aizen's fake corpse that others missed, noticing something was wrong even while under hypnosis. This analytical ability is impressive, but awareness of the illusion doesn't grant you immunity to its effects. The manga explicitly states that even knowing you're under hypnosis doesn't help resist it. The most damning evidence comes from Unohana herself during the Fake Karakura Town arc. When traveling through the Garganta with Ichigo, she informed him that he is the only one who can stand up against Aizen because he has never seen Kyokasui Getsu's release. This isn't speculation or fan interpretation. She literally acknowledges that she cannot defeat Aizen due to being under his hypnosis. In terms of raw spiritual power, 1000-Year Blood War Aizen operates on a different level. His Reiatsu continued expanding while imprisoned thanks to the Hokyoku's fusion with his body. Characters with vastly superior Reiatsu can negate abilities from opponents with inferior spiritual spiritual pressure. Aizen demonstrated this during the fake Karakura Town arc when he completely shrugged off Soifon's Nigeki Kisatsu, an ability that guarantees death after 2 strikes to the same location. His spiritual pressure simply nullified the effects of her attack. During his transcendent forms, his mere presence began erasing things that got too close to his body. By the time the 1000-year Blood War arc rolls around, his Reiatsu forms an invisible shield that disintegrates Shinigami who stray too close to him, while Unohana possesses Captain-class spiritual pressure that ranks among the highest of the Gotei 13. The gap between Captain-class and Transcendent is astronomical. In terms of raw strength, both of these combatants show interesting parallels. Unohana deflected Kenpachi's sword swings with the back of her hand and blocked his strikes with her feet during their battle. Aizen comparatively stopped Ichigo's Bankai blade with an outstretched finger during the Soul Society arc and later caught the massive blade of Komamura's Bankai bare-handed before cutting through the massive puppet and Komamura himself in 2 strikes. His physical strength has only increased since then through the Hokyoku's enhancement. Combat speed exists at comparable faster-than-light levels for both Shinigami. Unohana maintained pace with Kenpachi throughout their extended battle. Her movements were so refined that Kenpachi couldn't track her techniques despite his combat instincts. Aizen kept pace with Soul King enhanced Yhwach during their confrontation. In terms of technique, this represents Unohana's greatest advantage in any purely physical comparison. Her mastery of over 8,000 different sword styles means that she has seen every angle of attack, every feint, every possible blade trajectory. She analyzes opponents mid-combat, identifies weaknesses in their form, and adapts her approach accordingly. Her centuries of experience translates into instinctive awareness that anticipates threats before they develop. She seamlessly weaves hidden daggers into her swordsmanship, and she uses misdirection as a fundamental tool as she approaches combat with pragmatic ruthlessness. Aizen claims to have reached the peak of all Shinigami arts, and his swordsmanship is extraordinary, but his approach favors overwhelming power and psychological manipulation over technical refinement. When looking at their intellect, they both have a stat of 100 out of 100 according to the Bleach Souls databook. Unohana's intelligence manifests through analytical observation and medical precision. Her healing mastery grants her comprehensive anatomical understanding, as this translates into knowing exactly where to strike her opponents for maximum damage. When she was fighting Kenpachi, she continuously evaluated his fighting patterns, noting habits like his tendency to fight one-handed. Her strategic mind adapts to opponents through raw experience rather than elaborate planning. On the other hand, Aizen's intelligence is on a totally different scale. His mental calculations rival precognition. He orchestrated events spanning over a century, predicting exactly how individuals would react to specific situations and planning around those reactions with complete accuracy. He predicted Ichigo's entire journey from the moment he took interest in him, anticipating every fight and how Ichigo would evolve afterward. Against opponents stronger than himself, Aizen prepares countermeasures in advance, as he demonstrated with Wonder Wise against Yamamoto and with Kyoka Suigetsu against Yhwach's Almighty. When he first met Yhwach in Muken, Aizen placed him under hypnosis purely as a test to see if he could manipulate the Almighty's foresight. Once confirmed, he retained that advantage for the final battle not too long after. When considering pure battle experience, technically it does favor Unohana, as she's fought for over 1,000 years, accumulating combat knowledge which dwarfs the lives of most living Shinigami. However, Aizen has fought opponents that Unohana has never faced. He battled transcendent beings, survived Ichigo's Mugetsu, and engaged Soul King absorbed Yhwach directly. The quality of Aizen's combat experience at the highest levels exceeds Unohana's encounters despite her longer history. In terms of durability, Unohana's was boosted massively through her Bankai. She withstood attacks from Kenpachi that would obliterate lesser opponents. She sustained instantly fatal injuries repeatedly and continued fighting because her regeneration healed the damage almost immediately. The single scar on her body is from a young Kenpachi Zaraki, as this is the only permanent mark despite centuries of violent combat that she's received. It is also a testament to her impressive defensive skills. As impressive as this is, her durability remains within Shinigami limitations, as she is able to be killed. Kenpachi eventually did surpass her and dealt a fatal wound which took her life. Aizen's durability, on the other hand, transcends normal parameters entirely. The Hogyoku grants him regeneration classified as godly in power scaling communities. This means that he can quickly regenerate from attacks within the Soul Society's metaphysical framework. If he is able to survive an attack like Mugetsu and being absorbed by the Soul King absorbed Yhwach, then he can pretty much survive anything. And yeah, don't forget that Yhwach also tore his arm off and blew a hole through his torso, but this didn't stop Aizen. Traditionally, stamina would favor Unohana, but the Hogyoku makes Aizen's spiritual pressure functionally infinite. The Bleach 13 Blades databook states that Aizen's heart will never stop beating, meaning that he can exert himself for a theoretically unlimited duration. Now let's have a look at each of their ultimate abilities. Unohana's Bankai Minazuki transforms her environment into a blood lake that extends her range, inflicts corrosive damage over time, creates defensive spears to repel attacks, and provides continuous self-healing that allows her to trade blows freely and emerge unscathed. However, her Bankai lacks instant kill potential, since corrosive blood dissolves gradually rather than erasing matter. This means against opponents who can survive her initial assault and counterattack with overwhelming force, then her regeneration just becomes a delaying tactic rather than a victory condition. Comparatively, Aizen's ultimate ability isn't a single technique, but it's a combination of insurmountable advantages. First, you have Kyoka, which prevents opponents from accurately perceiving reality. Then there's his transcendent spiritual pressure, which negates abilities from inferior opponents. And you have to consider his Hogyoku granted immortality, which means that he cannot actually be killed regardless of damage that is inflicted to him. And this isn't even mentioning his intellectual superiority, which means he has likely predicted his opponent's strategies before the battle even begins. Are there any wild cards or X factors within this matchup which could easily turn the tide of the fight? Unohana's wild card is her absolute commitment to combat, accepting any injury because she could heal it and taking any risk because her skill would compensate. However, this mentality creates a vulnerability against Aizen because complete hypnosis doesn't care about commitment or determination. An opponent fighting without reservation while perceiving a false reality is simply swinging at illusions with maximum effort, and while her perception was good enough to notice anomalies in Aizen's fake corpse, noticing something is wrong is fundamentally different from piercing the illusion entirely. Aizen's wildcard is his psychological warfare capability, having manipulated Momo into blind loyalty, predicting Ichigo's development trajectory across years, and turning the entire Soul Society against itself. All of this up against Unohana, he would recognize her bloodlust as a tool to exploit rather than a threat to fear, thus leading a Shinigami who craves challenging combat into traps by presenting the illusion of a worthy fight to her. The only chance Unohana has to win is if Aizen's arrogance leads him to engage in direct swordplay to prove superiority over the legendary First Kenpachi. But Thousand Year Blood War arc Aizen demonstrated a lot more restraint than his Arrancar arc self after his time in Muken, which granted him patience beyond his previous arrogance. So what's the ultimate verdict? Thankfully, Kubo has also chimed in on this battle, as he himself confirmed via Club Outside question and answer 701 that Soul Society arc Aizen chose not to fight Unohana because while he was confident that he could still win, he believed that the attempt to fight her would be more exhaustive than he would prefer. Now this was Soul Society arc Aizen, before the Hogyoku fusion was even a factor, before his power was further expanded upon during his Muken imprisonment. Thousand Year Blood War Aizen scales massively above that version in every measurable capacity. Unohana's path to victory essentially doesn't exist against an opponent like this. She cannot perceive him accurately due to Kyoka Suigetsu, she cannot kill him due to his immortality. Her superior swordsmanship skills become irrelevant when she's swinging at illusions. Her regeneration merely prolongs the inevitable because Aizen can outlast her via his infinite stamina. Her corrosive blood might not even affect him given the spiritual pressure differential between captain class and transcendent beings. In comparison, Aizen's path to victory is ridiculously easy. All he has to do is simply exist. He can allow Unohana to perceive a false battle while the real Aizen watches from safety. He can let her exhaust herself fighting phantom opponents. He can engage directly knowing she actually cannot harm him permanently. If he did decide to directly engage her in battle, then he could use Kido, spiritual pressure attacks, or even simple simple swordplay, safe in the knowledge that any damage he sustains will be easily regenerated. I ran a community poll on the channel where I asked all of you who would win in a 1 versus 1 fight between Aizen in his 1000-year Blood War form versus Unohana. We had over 21,000 votes as of making this video, and 92% thought that 1000-year Blood War Aizen would win, while only 8% thought that Unohana would win. I do agree with the community on this one, and honestly the analysis totally supports this overwhelming consensus. We have now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts about Aizen versus Unohana? Is there anything that I've forgotten to mention within this video? Is there any way for Unohana to realistically even stand a chance in this fight? Please do continue the discussion in the comments, and lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next Bleach video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.